If you ever wondered where my paychecks go, this is it. Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Brandon, and welcome back to Marotta Media. Happy New Year, everybody. This is my first official video of 2022. Well, I mean, sort of. Well, the second video I posted in 2022 because I ended up posting my best of the year list on New Year's. But either way, I'll count this as my first official video of the year. And to start off the year, I'm going to do something that I have not done in about a year and a half now, and that's to show you my Blu Ray collection. The last Blu Ray video I made, I think, was like in the summer of 2020, so yeah, it's been a while since I made my last one, and I've gotten quite a few Blu Rays since then. I have a review in the works, so I will be posting that soon, but in the meantime, I thought that this would be a fun video to make. I've picked up some normal Blu-rays, 4Ks, Steelbooks, Criterion Collection, and some special edition things. And in this video, you will be hearing me say a lot that I have not watched said movie that I bought, and I'm looking forward to it. Believe me, I will say it quite a bit. So without further ado, let's get right into it, and I will be going alphabetical order. Alright, so first up is An American Werewolf in London, and right off the bat, this is one that I have not yet seen. And I know that may seem a little bit blasphemous to people considering the status that this movie has. I know many consider it a classic, but believe me, I am looking forward to watching it. And I own this on Arrow Video. I didn't know what Arrow Video was up until just fairly recently, just up until a few months ago. I think I saw an ad of theirs on Instagram. I looked at their collection. They were having a sale, and I bought this one along with some others that you'll be seeing in this video as well. So yeah, have not seen this one yet, but I'm looking forward to it. Following that movie up is Everybody Wants Some from Richard Linklater. I was a big fan of Dazed and Confused, another Richard Linklater movie, and that movie in Everybody Wants Some are a lot alike. They're very simple movies, don't require a lot of thought, just hangout movies, basically. And this movie is even considered to be the spiritual successor to Dazed and Confused, because that movie took place in the 70s and this movie took place in the 80s. And I don't know what it was about it. I watched this movie just a few months ago for the first time, and I found it just so ridiculously entertaining, and it's so strange because nothing really happens. As I mentioned, it's such a simple story just about a baseball team, a college baseball team, I should say, and just going through the motions of college and life at that point. And I found it to be ridiculously entertaining. I loved it, and it's a movie that I will definitely be watching again. After that is Gone with the Wind, the highest grossing movie of all time when adjusted for inflation. That's a fun fact if you didn't already know that. And it pains me to say it, but I have not seen this movie. I mean, it's 4 hours long, people. I'm gonna have to carve out a good portion of my day to make it through this whole thing. And this isn't a movie that I feel I should watch in increments. I believe that it should be seen all the way through with no interruptions. But either way, it's still a classic, and I am very excited to finally check it out. Next up is The Green Knight, one of my favorite movies of last year. A movie that I reviewed, and if you want to see my full thoughts on it, then go check out my review. I did all my thoughts as well as what I thought the ending had been. But if you saw my review, you'll know that this movie did not leave a great taste in my mouth when I first watched it because I was so confused when the credits started to roll, and I went home and I did extensive research on the themes of the story and the story structure as well as the original poem that this movie is based on. I probably should have done that prior, but I also did not expect to be so confused on my first watch. But after the research I did, I came to appreciate this movie so much because it is fantastic. It's just a very meticulously made film, and David Lowery had such a beautiful vision. and it was so amazing to see it come to life. If you liked movies such as The Lord of the Rings or you liked Game of Thrones, then I think you should give this a shot, because I really think that you'll dig it. Next up, In the Heights. One of my favorite movies of last year as well. It was in my top 10, but this is a movie that I could not stop thinking about after I had watched it for the first time. I've mentioned this a million times, but the song 96,000 is still on my on repeat playlist on Spotify, and I don't know if it's gonna leave anytime soon, because I love that song, I love this movie, it's a hella good time. If you like musicals, then I think you will enjoy this one too, so be sure to check it out. Up next is It's a Wonderful Life. Now, every Christmas for maybe the past 5 or 6 years, I told myself, this is the year. This is the year that I am going to watch It's a Wonderful Life, because I had never seen it before. And I never did. And this past Christmas, I finally watched it, because a few of my friends say that this is their favorite Christmas movie. And they were like, let's all watch it together. And so we did. And yeah, it's just as good as people said it is. This movie is truly fantastic. And I got a Steelbook of it. And I'm very happy I do, because I love how this thing looks. Because the design is so slick. And on the back of it, you've got that classic line, every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. It also came with this. It came with an original poster of the movie. Like, look at that. That's so freaking cool. Maybe I'll get this framed and I'll put it up every Christmas, but for right now, I'll just keep it in the Steelbook. But I just thought that was awesome, that they include things like this. But yeah, great movie, great Christmas movie, and I will be watching this every Christmas from this point forward, and I'm looking forward to it, because I'm still very disappointed that Christmas is already over. I swear to God, December is the quickest month ever. After that, we have The Kid Detective. This movie came out in 2020, and a few people told me to watch this. A good friend of mine, as well as my dad, they said that this movie is great, and I really need to check it out. I watched it a few months ago for the first time, and I was blown away. I really wish that I watched this movie before I put out my 2020 list, but you know, live and learn. But if I did, this definitely would have been top 5. And I really think that this could have ended up at either number 3 or as high as number 2. This movie is fantastic. A truly hidden gem in that awful year that was 2020. This is a movie that I'm definitely going to show people. I watched it on Amazon. I think I rented it for like $3. So if you guys are looking for something to watch, anything, then I highly, highly recommend The Kid Detective. Following that one up is The Last Starfighter, another movie that I bought on Arrow Video. I watched this movie a lot when I was a kid, and I have not seen it in years. But this is another one that I'm happy to own, because, I mean, that casing is just amazing. It's so cool looking. And just like It's a Wonderful Life, look what it came with. You know, just a full poster of the movie. And it's as cool as that looks. Look, there's another side. So if you get bored with that one, you could just switch it out. And I truly love Blu-rays that include things like this. It's so cool. They go all out, and they absolutely do not need to. And it's amazing. Next up, we have Malignant. I got this for Christmas, and I am very happy that I own this movie now, because this is another movie that I reviewed, and my experience watching this movie in the theater is one that I will never forget. In fact, I wish that I could forget it, so I could see this movie in the theater again for the first time and experience it for the very first time all over again, because that experience can never, ever be duplicated. I love this movie, dude. It is so freaking campy. It does not take itself seriously at all. James Wan just absolutely lets loose with this thing, and it's incredible. This is another one that I want to show people because I think this is just a good time. Now, I'm not much of a drinker or a smoker, but I imagine that this movie would be very, very fun to watch if you watched it drunk or high. But this movie is a hell of a trip. If you haven't checked it out, do yourself a favor and watch it. The last 30 minutes will blow your mind. Next up, we have Minari, another one of my favorite movies of 2020. Fantastic family film. I saw this right at the beginning of 2021, and I fell in love with it. It's so endearing, sweet, charming, funny, cute, and it's also pretty tragic in parts. This is definitely a movie you could watch if you're more into some light-hearted viewing, even though it does tackle some pretty serious themes such as racism and what it means to belong, but it never feels too heavy-handed, so if you're looking for kind of a smooth, easy movie to watch, then I highly recommend Minari. It's very funny, it's very sweet, and I love it. Following that up is middle-aged John Wick, Nobody. This is a movie that I saw last year as well, and I loved it, and it was on my best of the year list for a while, but I crammed so many great films that I had to watch into the last 2 months of the year, and Nobody ended up not making it. I only gave it a 7 out of 10, but I feel like it could go up with a rewatch, but this movie is just so much fun. Bob Odenkirk does such an amazing job as the protagonist, and I'm very excited to see if they make a sequel, because if they do, then I will absolutely be purchasing a ticket for it. So check out Nobody if you're a fan of John Wick. Next up is Pig, another one of my favorite movies from last year. Nicolas Cage gives one of the best performances of his career, his best performance in years since Mandy. I mentioned in my best of 2021 list that this movie was mismarketed, and it appears that it was because it gave the appearance of a John Wick sort of movie, but it's actually a very touching drama about love and loss and coping with that loss and beginning the process of healing. Like, this movie hit me a lot harder than I expected it to, and it truly was incredible. This is another hidden gem from last year that I feel a lot more people should watch. So if you ever get a chance to watch Pig, then please check it out. And here we have another movie that I've mentioned in this video so far, and that is Possessor. This was my runner-up for my favorite movie of 2020. It was directed by Brandon Cronenberg, son of horror great David Cronenberg. Now, the basic premise of Possessor is a woman who's an assassin, and she inserts her mind into the body of other individuals and basically controls them. So it's her conscious, but in another person's body. But it tackles some pretty serious themes such as self-identity and the urge to be someone else. And I didn't expect that from it, because this movie is pretty bloody and you think you're just gonna get a simple assassin story, but it goes so much deeper than that. If you like horror, then I think this is definitely right up your alley. We moved on to my bottom shelf, and following that one up is 16 Candles. Now, 16 Candles is one of the few John Hughes movies that, honestly, I have not seen. Now, I love all of the John Hughes movies that I have seen. Ferris Bueller, The Breakfast Club, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I think they're all great. And this is another one that he made in the 80s that is now a cult classic and so many people look at with fond nostalgia of the 80s. But I have not yet seen this one, but I will definitely be checking it out soon, and I'm looking forward to it. Next up is The Suicide Squad, my favorite superhero movie of last year, another movie that I own on Steelbook. I just couldn't resist because this cover is amazing. You got all of the villains on there, even the ones who all were slaughtered at the beginning. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen The Suicide Squad, but it came out in July, so if you haven't seen it by now, then that's your own fault. But this is such a fun superhero flick. It's unlike any that I've seen. James Gunn absolutely knocked it out of the park with this one, and I'm excited to rewatch it. Next up is Tenet, my favorite movie of 2020. A lot of people consider this to be Christopher Nolan's worst movie, but I love this movie, man. As confused as I was the first time I watched it, I really didn't care because I found it to be so entertaining. I really want to know what goes through Christopher Nolan's mind when he's writing scripts like this one, because you have to think that he has to be on drugs of some kind. But this movie kicked ass. I loved it. It had such an amazing score too. Ludwig Göransson should have been nominated at the Oscars last year for Best Original Score, but he wasn't, and that's a travesty. But I'm excited to see what else he does, and I'm also very excited to see Christopher Nolan's next movie. And ending just the normal Blu-rays that I have is Weird Science, another John Hughes movie. I forgot to mention this one, but this actually is one that I have seen. I've seen this movie quite a bit. My dad showed this movie to me when I was fairly young, and I question if that was the right move, because in hindsight, this might not be the best movie for a child to watch. I mean, it's not overtly inappropriate, but there is some raunchy stuff in it. But I also have not seen this movie in a long time, and I'm looking forward to rewatching it whenever I can. Alright, now we're gonna get into what I've picked up on the Criterion Collection recently from the sales from the past year, and the first one is The Before Trilogy by Richard Linklater. I had never seen these movies, but I pretty much watched all of them 3 days in a row. I watched Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, and Before Midnight, 3 straight days. And I'm very happy I did, because these movies are pretty fantastic. Definitely will not be for everybody, because it's mostly just Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy talking for the entire runtime. So if you aren't really entertained by people having conversations, then these movies are definitely not for you. But if you like well-written dialogue and phenomenal chemistry between these two really interesting and relatable characters, then check out this trilogy. Next up, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Stanley Kubrick. Peter Sellers. Don't have much to say about it, because I still haven't seen it, but I'm looking forward to it. It's a classic, and I can't wait to watch it. Eyes Without a Face, a black and white French horror film from 1960. Heard a lot about this one, but have not seen it, and I'm looking forward to it. Fast Times at Ridgemont High, another hangout high school movie from the 80s, and it was really good. I saw bits and pieces of this movie over the years, but I never watched it fully from start to finish, but I watched it recently, and yeah, it's really good. It's very funny, full of very memorable characters, obviously Sean Penn's Jeff Spicoli, the stereotypical stoner surfer dude who everybody imitates when they're trying to impersonate a stoner surfer dude. But this movie had a lot of Oscar winners in it, and these guys weren't even really known at the time. Like, there was Sean Penn, Forrest Whitaker, and Nicolas Cage is in this movie too. This was his first acting role. He has a non-speaking role. He plays one of Judge Reinhold's best friends, and he works at the burger place with him. You see him on screen a few times, but he never talks. But yeah, if you like 80s movies about kids in high school just dicking around and living life, then check this one out. It's great. Next up, we have The Game from David Fincher, one of his more underrated movies, I feel. But I have not seen it yet, and I'm looking forward to it. But I really expect to love it, because I've loved all of David Fincher's movies that I have seen thus far. And we're just going to speed round it here. So next up, we have the Coen brothers' Inside Llewyn Davis, another one that I have not seen. I get these when they're on sale, people, so don't judge me if I'm not really in a hurry to watch them, but I fully expect to love this one too, because I love the Coen brothers. The Irishman, Martin Scorsese, his most recent movie, and it's a movie that I love. This was on my best of 2019 list, and it's so weird because this movie is 3.5 hours long. And I don't know what it is about it, but this is a movie that will just occasionally pop into my mind and I'll think, I need to go and rewatch that, because this is definitely a film that I could see myself just sitting down one afternoon and rewatching. Because keep in mind, It's 3.5 hours long, so you gotta carve out a good portion of your day to watch it. And that may be hypocritical because I did just say that Gone with the Wind is very long at 4 hours and this is just 30 minutes less, but I've seen this and I love it. So it's harder to watch a movie that you haven't seen that's very long than it is to watch a movie that you have seen that's very long. But if you love Martin Scorsese and his old gangster flicks, then you'll like The Irishman too. Alright, I'm gonna go speed round on these next ones too, because these movies that I own on the Criterion Collection are other ones that I have yet to see, but believe me, I am excited to watch them. First up is It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. Yeah, classic, about a bunch of crazy people looking for a hidden treasure. Looking forward to it, haven't seen it yet. Next up after that, we have Bong Joon-ho's Memories of Murder. I have only seen Parasite from Bong Joon-ho, but after watching that movie and falling in love with it, this is definitely the first one that I will be watching because I hear that this is probably his undisputed masterpiece. But I gotta check out his entire filmography, but this one is definitely the first one that I will be watching. After that we have Moonrise Kingdom, Wes Anderson. I love Wes Anderson. His movies are definitely not for everybody. He's just got such a unique, quirky, cartoonish sort of style. I love The Grand Budapest Hotel and his most recent movie, The French Dispatch, so I'm looking forward to watching this one, but yeah, haven't seen it yet. I don't know if I'll love it as much as those other ones, but we'll see. And the last one that I haven't seen is The Parallax View. I'll be honest with you, I mostly bought this just because I thought the cover looked really cool, but I hear that this is a hidden gem from the 70s, so this is definitely one that I'll be watching sooner rather than later as well. And speaking of Bong Joon-ho's Parasite, I own that on Criterion as well. Why do you own Parasite on Criterion when you already own it on Blu-ray as well? Yes, that is very true. I do own this movie on Blu-ray as well, but come on, it's Parasite, and it's on Criterion. Do I need to say any more than that? How could I not buy it? This is a movie that I have not watched in quite some time, so I'm sure my rewatch will be just as good as my first watch, because this movie is just an undisputed masterpiece. Phenomenal film. And another Criterion that I bought from a director that I really admire is Steven Soderbergh's Sex, Lies, and Videotape, his very first film. Another one have not watched yet. We'll watch it eventually, and I'll give my thoughts on it later on, who knows, we'll see. And the last Criterion that I have to show that I just got for Christmas last month is Uncut Gems. I fucking love this movie, and I'm so happy that it is on the Criterion Collection. I can't believe that it's already on it, though, because this movie came out in, when did it come out? 2019. And it was released on Criterion 2 years later. That's pretty unbelievable to me that it got a release that fast. Brandon, why do you also own Uncut Gems on Criterion when you own it on Blu-ray as well? Yep, that's true too. This is another movie that I own on Blu-ray and Criterion. What can I say? I'm a collector, and I have money to burn. Or do I? I probably shouldn't spend as much money on Blu-rays as I do. Alright, and we're going on to the special edition Blu-rays now, and the first one that I have is MidSummer, the director's cut. This is one of my purchases from the A24 store. They had this on sale on there, and I swooped it up because I love this movie, and this movie is 3 hours long. The original cut of it that I saw in theaters is 2.5 hours, but the extra 30 minutes that they add really make this movie so much better. I reviewed MidSummer a few years ago and I gave it a 7 out of 10, and after watching the director's cut, I'd give it an 8, honestly. It added so much more context to so many questions that I had, one of them being, why didn't they try to leave? In fact, a friend who I watched this movie with, who hated it when we saw it in theaters the first time, said that it was really good after watching the director's cut for that very reason, because of the context that it added. But if you're able to pick this one up, then please buy it, because it's a cool collector's item, and it's just a better cut of the film. And when you take it out of the sleeve, it has this, and it also has that kick-ass disc with Danny on it as the May Queen, and it also has a lot of storybook pictures with not safe for work images that I cannot show you without getting in trouble on YouTube, so I am just going to blur these out. Look at all those there. You don't know what I'm looking at right now, but believe me, it's good stuff. And the last thing that I will be showing you in this Blu-ray video is the box set that I bought of The Office. One of my favorite television shows, probably my favorite sitcom ever. I absolutely love The Office. It's such a great show. It's very timeless. It does not date itself at all. I am rewatching this show currently, and I believe I'm on season 6. And I will be rewatching it again in a few months, I imagine. But what's funny is I watched this show for the first time in 2020 during quarantine when we were all locked in our houses. And I think I finished the whole show in about a month. All 9 seasons, and I will say that honestly, season 8 and 9 aren't bad. I mean, they're not great. It all definitely went downhill after Steve Carell left, but they're very enjoyable, I think, because the whole show just went downhill after Steve Carell left, but I think they managed without him. It would have been better if he was there, but season 8 and season 9 both have some pretty memorable episodes, I think. So I guess you could say I'm a pretty big fan of this show, and I'm very happy that I am an owner of this box set. Well, that's it, everybody. Those are the Blu-rays that I have picked up in the last year. If you guys like my collection, then let me know what you think about it. Which of these movies do you like? Do you dislike any of them? But if you're a small YouTuber like me, then drop your Blu-ray collection videos down below. I would love to see them and compare our collections. If you guys like this video, then be sure to hit that thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe. But if you want to see my previous 2 Blu-ray videos that I made before this one, then I will link those right over here. Other than that, I hope you all have a tremendous rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.